We're now past the latest mainline release of the Assassin's Creed series in Mirage, with a new one on the horizon in Shadows. Excluding side releases, such as the excellent PSP title Bloodlines, there are now 13 mainline games in the series as I write this line. So, how do they stack up against one another? Number 13. Odyssey. Odyssey is a complete failure of a game and a bigger failure of an Assassin's Creed title. It fails to go full RPG and then doesn't honour the RPG-like structure. It undermines the main character in the ancestor memories by letting you choose who they are, which, last I checked, isn't how memories or history works. And then, doesn't offer a blank canvas to project your playstyle morals onto, nor a fully formed, fleshed out character that always acts in the character's characteristics. The game ignored design factors and structures that fans loved. It ignored the 10 commandments of making an Assassin's Creed game. Therefore, upon arrival, it felt like a completely different franchise. Adding in supernatural elements further broke with the series and alienated many fans who had built the series. The biggest problem, though, was the in-game store. This charged real-world money for in-game unlocks that weren't obtainable through gameplay. They were the best-looking cosmetics with the most powerful and exclusive perk sets. And they sold an XP booster in a full-priced, single-player-only game. If you've done your job right as a developer and designed and crafted your game well, it will be balanced appropriately, meaning the XP and level curve should be engaging in and of itself. At no point should a well-designed system need a purchasable boost. Yet Odyssey had it available from launch in the store. The inclusion of that XP boost means that the game was purposely made to be unbalanced against the player. With an incohesive story to boot, repetitive gameplay, and elements that undermine the world created by 11 previous titles, Odyssey is an insult to the entire series and fanbase. Number 12. Valhalla. This game ranked 9th the last time that I did this list, so what happened? Well, Valhalla has not aged well. Following Odyssey was never going to be easy. The previous game brought in new players but alienated existing ones, and Valhalla was tasked with pleasing them all. As you can imagine, that didn't work so well. Everything was surface level too. You jumped from section to section trying to please different fans. Sectors that pleased old fans annoyed new fans, but then in the next section those new fans were pleased, which annoyed the old fans. As you can imagine, constant pulling in different directions negatively impacted the flow of the title, and made much of the narrative stop-start for many players. The narrative flow is further impacted by design. There's a point in the title where the narrative wants to go at a gallop to the end of the game, but the gameplay design wants you to arbitrarily complete every side quest to advance. It's like the left hand didn't speak to the right hand and instead of clapping, just slapped their face hard instead. There are good aspects to the game. The assassins are actually in this title, which is an exponential increase over the last game. They are fighting their eternal war against the Templars. You can one-shot enemies when driving a hidden blade through their jugular, something that rarely happened in Odyssey, making stealth once again viable. And you can wear a hood and hide in plain sight. However, Valhalla takes many opportunities to insult its original player base. The main character denies the Brotherhood at the end of the narrative, specifically stating it is an undesirable existence, giving us a third game on the trot, not playing as an assassin. In the DLC, they go as far as having Cassandra and Eivor insult the original fanbase by calling them untrustworthy. The single-player experience was treated as a live service, and the longevity of the game suffered for it. Repetitive, identical seasonal events literally had a different colour palette to them to differentiate them. DLC was spread over the course of 3 years, meaning many players had simply moved on from boredom. And those were the players who actually managed to make it past the incessant grind from 60 hours to 100 hours to complete the main game. Most didn't get anywhere near the end of the title. And then it kept throwing in the supernatural more and more as time progressed. While a huge step up over its predecessor, meeting 4 of the 10 commandments of making a game in this series, it is still only a halfway house at best. A half-arsed release with design choices that have no place in a single-player game really hamper Valhalla, along with its fanbase insulting lines. Were it not for Odyssey's existence, this would be the worst game in the series. Number 11. Rogue. There isn't much to say about Rogue that hasn't already been said. It is built on the Black Flag engine, using all of Black Flag's assets, architecture, and mechanics. It claims to offer the other side of the story, giving you a view of the Templars' points. It claims that you'll be hunted by assassins, and so on. The reality of Rogue is that it is functional to tell a story, but all loftier claims are just that. Claims. It still plays superbly like Black Flag before it, and even seamlessly incorporates some of the greatest multiplayer elements into the single-player campaign. But playing as a Templar doesn't really change anything. Everything you know from every game previously is usable and effective here. The moral questioning of the series that was so well handled 2 games ago in Assassin's Creed 3 isn't explored here at all, even at a surface level, which, given the sales pitch and content of the game, is shocking. Characters we know from previous titles act out of character in this one, and there is this gross overarching feeling of been there, done that detracts from the title massively. It feels like the cheap cash grab it was obviously made to be. There's nothing inherently wrong with Rogue, but there's nothing in that good or great category either. It just sort of exists. And I did initially forget about it when writing this list, and when I did remember it, it just kind of annoyed me with what it didn't do. Number 10. Mirage. Mirage annoys me because it is so close to being good. But through silly design decisions and some poor writing, it squanders the good foundations that it built for itself. There is a lot to like. Assassins are back in the game in their pre-1000 AD form of the Hidden Ones. The Templars are back in their proto-form of the Order of the Ancients. You hunt Order leaders down throughout the Baghdad map, following clues to their whereabouts and assassinating them. And there is an underlying feeling of something else going on. All these are hugely reminiscent of the glory days of the franchise, Assassin's Creed through Black Flag. But there are some large problems with the game. There is no modern-day gameplay, making the reason for reliving Basim's memories completely unknown, and the title's place in the series therefore up for debate. That something else through the narrative has a supernatural feel. As the 13th release in the series that built itself on science fiction and having a plausible technological explanation to everything, this supernatural edge detracts from the feeling of the game. The narrative is also hampered by design. It is broken into 6 segments that can be tackled in any order, meaning they cannot pull on events that happened in any other segment to tell a cohesive tale. For 80% of the game, you feel like you're treading water and going nowhere. The finale has a hard lock on progression if you don't have a certain premium currency. And the title's ending, even with knowledge from the previous game Valhalla, is indistinct and confusing at best. While the gameplay, stealth, and Assassin vs Templar war feels like coming home, the lack of attention to detail, narrative flow, and rampant bugs through the rest of the title really detract from something that had the potential to be really special. Number 9. Syndicate. In the old era of Assassin's Creed, the annual releases with only minor improvements, Syndicate, despite being set in my home country of England, disappointed me. In 2024, however, it feels like a breath of fresh air after the previous 3 games. Do not get me wrong, the challenges that hurt the game in 2015 are still persistent here. The 1-to-1 scale regions make pre-running nigh impossible. The design team addressed this with a zipline which further nullified parkour and removed the climbing puzzles that the series was known for. The number-metric combat that would plague the series moving forward was introduced here and feels awful. The late development addition of the character Jacob to appease the sexist bosses at Ubisoft shows, and the character is as hateful as his conception sounds, despite an excellent performance from Paul Amos. Evie, the far superior and obviously main character of the game, is sidelined so often that it feels like the game is actively trying to not be Assassin's Creed. The modern day and those who came before stories are undermined by the silent, faceless protagonist, and the implications of the Shroud of Eden are never explored in this or any other game, instead being resolved in a comic off-screen. But the core of the franchise is still present in this game, and it feels great. When you forego the zipline, the climbing is still very satisfying. Entering an area far above your level and stealthily taking out every foe feels amazing. Characters with actual personality affect the world and how people react to you and your actions. Secrets are discovered through gameplay, not microtransactions. The 10 commandments of making an Assassin's Creed game are fully adhered to. There's powerful modern-day narratives with characters we know and love, cliffhangers, endgame, and all the goodies you've come to expect at this point in the series. Maybe it's nostalgia talking here. Maybe it's a downturn in the industry as a whole, and especially in this series since this release. But whatever the reason is, it just feels better playing Syndicate now than playing most of what came after it. Number 8. Unity. Let's not beat about the bush here. Only Cyberpunk 2077 has launched in a worse state than Unity did. In Unity, we had missing faces, floating architecture, light shows instead of graphics, entire missions that appeared and disappeared at will, falling through the map, getting stuck in the air, dying while sitting on a bench, and a list that is so long and varied that a video just listing the issues would be over an hour long. At launch, the game was a catastrophic, unfinished failure. But something raises it to 8th on this list. Despite the issues and challenges of its launch, Unity is a great story. Arno's journey is one many of us could relate to. A lot happens around Arno that he slowly wakes up to and notices, and then decides to do something about it. It is a much better look at what happens when a man so highly trained is pushed to the absolute brink. He becomes uncaring, and we see how dangerous to everyone in the vicinity that becomes. But with the free expansion of Dead Kings, given away free to every player due to the terrible launch state, the character is saved and brought back from that brink in a beautiful character-driven story. Mechanically, we have the black box assassinations that offered a more nuanced approach to assassinations. We have the ability to choose to free run up, down, or across with alternate button inputs, something so drastically missing now. We have a great fledgling co-op experience, which can also be done solo for an additional level of challenge, and some absolutely gorgeous graphics, even 10 years later. But even with these positives, there were still challenges in design that would lower Unity's place in the list. Animation-locked parkour, for example. Gone was the incredible freedom of movement from the previous games. Instead, you had to wait for an animation to complete before doing something else, something that still plagues the series now. The nameless, faceless, and voiceless modern-day protagonist completely detaches you from the modern-day story. But mostly, it was the bugs. And I'm not talking about the catastrophic launch bugs, but the ones that persist, even to this day. If Ubisoft had put the care into this title that CD Projekt Red put into Cyberpunk, the conversation would be far different about the game 10 years after its launch in 2024. Instead, they patched the biggest issues to get the game mostly playable, and immediately moved on to something new, leaving what could have been great to remain a buggy and horrible mess to play, and leave it languishing in the lower half of the series rankings. Number 7. Black Flag. For some, this is the greatest game in the series, and I get where they are coming from. But having replayed everything since the last time I did this list, Black Flag falls just that little bit short for me, slipping into the lower half of the list. It's nothing against the story or the character of Edward Kenway. In fact, both of these aspects are incredible and keep you going when many other aspects would have you stop. Combat, for example, saw a massive step backwards from the previous 4 games. Less weapon variety, less animations, and combos. It became very functional once again. It's not bad, it just doesn't have any depth, and becomes very repetitive long before the end of the game, something that hadn't happened in the series otherwise since the very first game. Free running doesn't feel as good as in every game before this one. While it works basically the same as every game previously, the design of the areas often limits you to one route through them, rather than the run and jump anywhere freedom that the series has allowed previously. Buildings are just slightly too far away from each other. Trees are just that little bit too sparse. Cliff paths with very specific placements, which all come together to noticeably undermine free running and feel worse than previous games. There are far too many tailing missions, sometimes even back to back. They become laborious and boring, which means you then miss some vital story moments because you've mentally checked out from boredom. And it's just that little bit too long, making the game and narrative drag a bit by the end of its runtime. These aspects are constant. They are throughout the entire game and heavily impact the feeling of it. That doesn't mean it is bad by any stretch of any imagination, though. Edward, for many, is the first character since Ezio to actually appeal to them. He's charismatic, charming, ruthless, conniving, caring, loyal, and flawed. He presents as a real person, and his journey is made all the better for it. The script, while a touch too long, has some of the best quotes of the entire series. From amusing moments like,
"Ready?
Your name's not James, is it?
Not most days. Come on."
through to Edward's heartfelt speech when he realizes he and the assassins align.
Have I been unfair?
No. For years I've been rushing around taking whatever I fancied, not giving a tinker's curse for those I hurt. And yet here I am, with riches and reputation, feeling no wiser than when I left home. Yet when I turn around, look at the course I've run. There's not a man or woman that I love left standing beside me.
There's no wonder people remember the game so fondly when moments like these happen throughout and hit this hard.
Can we? In a world without gold, we might have been heroes!
But those challenges of design and length make reliving the excellent moments a rather laborious undertaking, meaning many fans simply do not have the time to revisit it, and will therefore simply look these moments up on YouTube. It is excellent, and one of the best games in the series. But that statement, and with it sitting technically in the lower half, just shows the sheer quality of both this game and all of those yet to come. Number 6. Assassin's Creed 3. Assassin's Creed 3 does what no other game in the series does incredibly well. It questions the creed within the ancestor memories. This feeds into Desmond in the modern day and his questioning of his father's running of the Brotherhood, his place within it, and even the entire DLC from the last game, Revelations. Rano Tacon, the main character of the game and our first protagonist of a country's native people, is a man not of the world or society of the main antagonists in AC3's ancestor memories. His naivety and ready trust of those who show some kindness to others shows the differences between our protagonist and essentially everyone else in the narrative. He is a young man who is learning a completely foreign world and trusts at face value the advice of those who have lived in it all of their lives. From changing his name to Connor to be more easily accepted by these invaders, to siding with Washington for freedom, and hating his father because of belief systems, having never met him. Rano Tacon's life mirrors that of children worldwide who start questioning all these teachings when exposed to more of the world. Rano Tacon is a wonderfully real character. So much so, I can easily relate to him, having moved halfway around the world at age 18 and experiencing many of the same situations with supposedly better informed individuals. Delivered through nuanced acting displaying obvious disenfranchisement as the tale progresses, superb soliloquies, and one of the best counter-arguments to the creed ever from Hatham.
What is it the Templars truly seek?
Order. Purpose. Direction. No more than that. It's your lot that means to confound with this nonsense talk of freedom. Time was. The assassins professed a far more sensible goal. That of peace.
Freedom is peace.
Oh no. It's an invitation to chaos. Only look at this little revolution your friends have started. I have stood before the Continental Congress and listened to them stamp and shout. All in the name of liberty. But it is just noise.
And this is why you favor Lee?
He understands the needs of this would-be nation far better than the jobberknolls who profess to represent it.
It seems your tongue has tasted sour grapes. The people have made their choice, and it was Washington.
The people chose nothing. It was done by a group of privileged cowards seeking only to enrich themselves. They convened in private and made a decision that would benefit them. Oh, they might have dressed it up with pretty words. That does not make it true. The only difference, Connor, the only difference between myself and those you aid is that I do not feign affection.
Assassin's Creed 3's ancestor memories are incredibly impactful and memorable. But, like Brotherhood and Revelations before it, the ancestor memories were not all that mattered here. The whole narrative got attention. We play as Desmond as he interacts with the now extinct precursor race to save the world in modern-day 2012. It is clear how far Desmond has come, and you play as this master assassin in the modern-day segments, taking out traitors like Daniel Cross and series villain so far Warren Vidic, both in brutally fast and efficient fashion. Upon activating the Precursor Temple, as has been the mission all along in this game, Desmond is faced with a choice. Let most of humanity die and rebuild from the ashes like a messiah, or save everyone but unleash Juno, a megalomaniac precursor upon the world. Desmond chooses the latter in a beautifully emotional moment, and with his sacrifice sets up a new race for survival against Juno. A story Ubisoft unfortunately thought was better resolved off-screen 4 games later. Despite being undermined later in the series with essentially the erasure of the timeline, a 5-hour tutorial playing as Hatham, a slightly rushed conclusion, and Ranotacon's beautiful speech that was cut, I love this game. I relate heavily to the experiences of Ranotacon and love the modern-day twists and turns. The heroes do not do what is expected of them, and they don't adhere to character stereotypes. Those couple of minor missteps do drop it down the list slightly, but it is still a great game. Number 5. Assassin's Creed. There is something so wonderful and wholly realised about the original Assassin's Creed. From the science fiction elements totally complementing and supporting the story, to the Animus technology, precursor race and eagle vision, all of it served a purpose and was presented and explained excellently. It was then wrapped up in a superb narrative that had intrigue, peril, duplicity, discovery, and hope. Carried by a 3-pronged narrative, offering stories in the modern day, human history, and that of a precursor race that existed before humanity, this game came from the research into the possibility of a new Prince of Persia game, and led the development team down the historical era punctuated by the Hashashin. Within the first 30 minutes of the game, we see a cocky assassin in the Holy Land during the Crusades die. A bartender who has been kidnapped and is being held illegally be subject to reliving genetic memories through a piece of technology called an Animus. That cocky assassin be reborn, and be informed he must re-earn the title of Master Assassin by undergoing the training and rituals once more. And a hint of something more with a science fiction edge. It's a heck of an opening. The game then presents itself as that journey to becoming a master of the craft. You investigate every situation by hiding in plain sight, using that opening to eavesdrop, pickpocket, and tail for information. You disappear by climbing, running, and jumping out of the area. You report all findings to the bureau leader of the city, and then execute the assassination perfectly. By plying this trade throughout the game, the player also becomes a master of the gameplay mechanics, and is an absolute force by the end of the title, not even blinking when facing the entire army of Richard the Lionheart. The character evolution of Altair from cocky gung-ho killer to measured, wise, and fiercely protectful master assassin, willing to do whatever it takes to protect the Brotherhood, even if it means being outcast, is superbly written, acted, and portrayed. But Assassin's Creed isn't just about the ancestors' memories. Lest we forget, this is all ancient history that we are remembering here about long-dead people. The main character is that bartender, Desmond Miles in the modern day. The gameplay with Desmond isn't complex, but the series lore set up in his sections, and completely missable if you do not engage with the environment, is incredible. From Abstergo planting fake news about the state of the outside world, to organisation charts, character bios on both sides of the war, all the way through to Desmond's predecessor, Subject 16, leaving him messages written in human blood on his cell walls. It even tells about future pieces of Eden we chase in other games in the series, and where the series was meant to end, on a temporal spaceship from the precursor race aiming to save humanity. Lucy's revelation of being an assassin, her communications with them to rescue Desmond, the legal issues for Abstergo poisoning water, the satellite launch to control humanity, and the strike squads to crush resistors, those who are immune or protected. The fact that you have to find this information, infiltrate, pickpocket, and eavesdrop, just as in the Ancestor Memories, makes obtaining such information fully rewarding. And with the ending combining all narrative threads into one cohesive whole, it left players chomping at the bit for more. Number 4. Assassin's Creed 2. More they would get, 2 years after Assassin's Creed with Assassin's Creed 2. Initially, however, there was a challenge to overcome. There was no Altair this time. We had jumped 400 years ahead in the Ancestor Memories and moved to Italy. And this time, we were experiencing the life of Ezio Auditore da Firenze, some fresh-faced newbie that we had no connection to. A new main character in a sequel was incredibly rare in 2009. So much so, many thought the change in character was due to negative press from the first game. Nothing could be less true, however. In the game's introduction, playing as Desmond, we escaped the Abstergo facility we were held in for the entire first game, with the help of Lucy, and go to meet up with other members of the Assassin's Brotherhood. This is a short but very important segment of gameplay. It shows that this story was planned before even the launch of the first game. As it is an immediate follow-on from Assassin's Creed, literally picking up where the last game left off, it reignites player familiarity, and more importantly, reminds us that Desmond is the main character of the game, not the Ancestor. It gives us a reason to re-enter the Animus and relive a new Ancestor's memories. And even better, this reason was already known to those who played all of the modern-day segments of Assassin's Creed and found out about the bleed effect. The bleeding effect that the Animus produces would allow Desmond to train to the level of a Master Assassin in just a few days, by reliving the life of one of his Master Assassin ancestors and absorbing all of his knowledge and skills. This introduction made all players forget any upset that they had at not playing as Altair again. There's reason to play as a new character. Strong lore and narrative reasons. And then we actually meet and play as Ezio. He is essentially the polar opposite of Altair. And that was a genius move. You know this character is going to be a Master Assassin. That's why you are reliving his memories. So, seeing where you start, you want to know how this spoiled member of the aristocracy becomes that master. And boy did that narrative deliver. Offering collusion, betrayal, vengeance, lost love, friendship, grieving, espionage, science fiction, historical reality, historical fiction, and much more, the narrative sounds like it shouldn't work from just the themes included. But it works superbly, and is so well written, directed, and acted that it leaves an incredible mark upon the player. Tweaking and improving every mechanic in the game also elevates this above the previous entry. Free running is faster and more fluid. It has additional skills added on that are learned through narrative moments. Combat is broader. Ezio has more weapon types, animations, and enemy variety. Social stealth has visual cues, and you can even move whilst using eagle vision. There is the excellent Subject 16 glyphs, which work similar to the PCs in the lab from the first game, and offer more background and lore to the series. A paired-back collectathon of 100 feathers that actually serves a narrative purpose is a massive improvement over the near 1,000 flags in Assassin's Creed. You have dual hidden blades, can collect codex pages written by Altair to improve Ezio, giving a tangible link to the previous title. Confession rooms return, and they actually teach you some rudimentary Italian. You can swim in this game, and you actually get to use an Apple of Eden. All of this is set to the incredible incredibly accurate backdrop of Renaissance Italy. Know your way around Firenze in game? You'll know your way around it in real life. The same goes for Toscana, Monteriggioni, Venezia, and any of the other wonderfully historic locations. These locations offer verticality, multiple levels of horizontal movement, crafted paths, make your own options, and varied stealth approaches. The game was made with a clarity of vision and delivered that vision in a complete and cohesive package. So impactful was it that AC2 set the foundations for the Assassin's Creed franchise to rise to the top of the gaming world. Number 3. Origins. This game was second last time I made this list, so why the demotion this time? When replaying Origins, I was reminded why I liked it so much. Strong, powerful, and emotional performances fronted a new and robust design for the series. While the Assassin Brotherhood didn't exist at the start of the game, I knew we'd be creating it throughout, hence the name Origins. It began with an introduction, via a boss fight after a hugely impactful cutscene, to its robust combat system. We are playing as the last Magi here. He's going to be well versed with a blade and other weapons. And this introduction is as bombastic as the series needed it to be. It shows the depth and breadth that this new combat system has, and sets you up well to learn, advance, and master the system with its varying weapons, counters, blocks, and abilities throughout the rest of the title. But alongside such an impressive combat system is an impressive climb anything system, a decent if pared back stealth system, beautiful visuals, a tour through ancient Egypt that isn't 100% romanticized. Importantly though, the game is an introspective emotional tale about love, loss, and how one can handle and channel those emotions to maybe better the world around them. The emotions and love seep into every part of the creation of the Brotherhood. The leap of faith being a family tradition passed down through generations of Bayek's family. The Creed's insignia being the imprint of one of Bayek's previous Hawk's skulls in the sand. The missing finger being a show of solidarity and commitment to Bayek. The links to the assassin tombs from all the way back in Assassin's Creed 2. All of this links back to Bayek, Aya, and their family, and it's beautiful. The creation of the Creed, however, feels almost crammed into the game. Sections of the creation, such as the meaning behind the missing ring finger on the left hand, feel excellent and are explained in depth. These moments show why aspects that have been core to the series for a decade at the time of the game's launch are so integral to the Brotherhood. But the Brotherhood creation itself happens in one 6-minute cutscene. The decision to hide in the shadows and work for a greater good, the symbol that would become their insignia and calling card, the tenets of how to operate, the entire decision and the vital core aspects of the Creed were created in one conversation, on a beach, in 6 minutes flat. And then the game throws you into some finale stuff when none of those tenets and ideologies are adhered to, and then it ends. There is a slight expansion on the Brotherhood in the Hidden Ones DLC, but that's putting the important stuff behind a further paywall and a 3-month wait for release. Despite this gripe though, Origins is still incredible to me. We actually have a character in the modern day pushing the evolving real-world story forward. She isn't a Desmond-type character either, having no association to either the Assassins or Templars. We actually get to see some form of neutral view on this millennia-long war between these two factions. We have decent stealth gameplay, incredible graphics and score, possibly the best combat the series has ever seen, acting, writing and direction that was cohesive, high quality and impactful. We have a renewed vigour to the series, a setup to take this creation of the Creed through multiple sequel titles, 2 excellent main characters in the Ancestor Memories. There is so much good in this game, and for myself and many other fans, it renewed our passion and faith in the series when a string of less than stellar releases had eroded much of that away. Number 2. Revelations. At age 23, this game did not hit that hard for me. I had a terrible feeling throughout of been there, done that. I didn't engage with the enemies like I did with the Borgias in the previous 2 titles, and could see my beloved character not performing as well as he had before. At age 36, however, Revelations is incredible. It has possibly the best story in the entire series in its Ancestor Memories. In its Animus-locked modern-day segments, we learn so much about the actual ongoing story of Assassin's Creed. Narratives that have spanned every game in the series are tied up and resolved beautifully here. The narratives care about the characters. Not just Ezio and Desmond, but Sophia, Yusuf, Altair, and Subject 16 too. Even those characters that aren't present like Claudia, Sean, Rebecca, and even Lucy, who we killed at the end of the last game. At every single turn, the script understands these characters and their importance to the fan base and does all of them justice. The gameplay is arguably the best that the series has ever been, and that includes every game made after this. By cutting the fat and adding new and cool things such as a hook blade and ziplines, the gameplay feels fresh despite essentially being 4 games old at this point. Parkour is the full freedom of movement that the series has been built on, and combat knows when to be bombastic and when to just get the job done. Social and environmental stealth offer a good level of challenge and are rewarding when pulled off. The open world is busy and alive with shoppers, transport, guards, friends catching up, and more. Factions that made stealth and combat easier in previous Ezio titles have to be earned here. You have to enamor Ezio to each faction via narrative quest lines to gain their trust and camaraderie, showing an alive and evolving world around the protagonist. As you liberate Istanbul from its Ottoman and Templar overlords, the streets start to sound more jovial, and the world evolves in minute ways that have a massive and lasting positive impression. And Desmond's history, his memories, interactions with 16. It brings those fantastic moments from all previous games where you had to search for information, glyphs, animus corruptions and so on, and puts them front and centre, vital to the narrative and the conclusion of this series. It feels rewarding for those who obtained this information in previous games, and brilliantly shocking to those who only played the story. Were it not for a minor miracle just 1 year earlier, and the existence of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, Assassin's Creed Revelations could have been the greatest game Ubisoft ever made. Number 1. Brotherhood. 14 years. That's how long it has been since Brotherhood launched. 14 years. And in 10 games since, nothing else has matched it, let alone surpassed it. With that said, let this next statement sink in. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was created in only 8 months. Yes, it is a sequel. Yes, it uses mechanics and assets from the previous game. But we haven't seen a sequel turnaround like this since, especially not at this quality. It still stands tall in 2024 too, with good graphics, phenomenal mechanics, an excellent script balanced beautifully between all 3 narratives, acting that makes all characters real, and a cliffhanger ending that leaves you chomping at the bit for more. Brotherhood gives you what so many games in 2024 do not. A high-quality, fully finished game that leaves you simultaneously fully satisfied and wanting more. Ubisoft Montreal hit every aspect out of the park with Brotherhood, including its multiplayer aspect. A shocking addition to the single-player series that was unique and unlike anything else on the market. Its cat-and-mouse gameplay was so good that even when Ubisoft turned the servers off in 2023 for Brotherhood, there were still daily players of the mode. Now, they play on their own custom servers, and the community is great. Let me say this again. 8 months. 8 months only to build a completely new and historically accurate map, to write and tweak a script, to motion capture and voice record that script, to animate every face and movement of every character model, to improve the graphics and mechanics in an engine that's already seen massive jumps, to create a unique and high-quality multiplayer experience for a single-player franchise. And they did it! All 3 narratives saw equal weighting in the title. The story builds from the end of the last game in all narrative threads. There are lengthy parkour sections as Desmond, where he and Lucy chat, expand the modern-day narrative, and Desmond shows the skills he has acquired from Altair and Ezio via the Animus bleed effect. There is a tangible, visible link between the modern day and the past, with most of the Desmond sections taking place in Monteriggioni and him seeing ghosts of Ezio's life. Ezio's entire quest is to recover the apple from Monteriggioni after it's sacked by Cesare Borgia and hide it for Desmond to then find 500 years later. The precursors show obvious influence, especially in the lab under the Colosseum. They have pushed both protagonists and placed them in appropriate places so that Desmond could obtain the apple and save the world. The pacing, characterization, antagonists, intrigue, discovery, everything just scratches a narrative itch that all fans of the previous two games have, but it does it better than before. And gameplay does the same. There's not huge amounts that are new. We get a crossbow and a parachute, which expand your stealth and life-saving options. There's some amazing side quests where you get to play with Leonardo da Vinci's inventions, bringing unique gameplay. Everything else you know from previous games. But free running is more precise, combat is faster, leaner, more varied, and more brutal. Stealth is integral to the plot, and a new 100% sync mechanic adds an additional level of challenge and replayability to the game. You also actually get to act as a master assassin, and go recruit, train, and order a team of assassins about to liberate Rome. The game is a culmination of perfecting what came before, making small but noticeable and impactful tweaks, advancing a cohesive multi-game narrative, and delivering on a clarity of vision in a tight time frame to give fans a pinnacle experience that 13 years later still has not been matched. And that is my ranking of the mainline Assassin's Creed games. I realise for some this will be contentious, especially when my ranking of Black Flag and Assassin's Creed 3 differ from so many others. But that is the beauty of individuality, and I'd love to see your rankings, your agreements and disagreements in the comments below. This video was produced after 15 years of purchasing and playing every Assassin's Creed game personally. Ubisoft do not know this video is being made, do not get any copy approval or early preview of its contents. If they do see it, they will see it for the first time right alongside you. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this video, check out the differences from the last time I did this just after Valhalla. In the meantime, my name is Doragon. You can find me on threads at Doragon86 or in the Discord in the description. And until next time folks, have yourselves a fantastic day. And take care.